covered up to now, I can do that very briefly, as we talk about stages, and the next part is states, and I've already covered that, states of consciousness. And states of consciousness are temporary experiences, objects that come and go. Okay, you can be really happy. Well, I can guarantee you, you're not going to continue to feel really happy for the rest of your time on the planet. You know, it's a temporary thing. It comes and goes. Nothing wrong with it. Just enjoy it, but don't get too attached to it. And states of consciousness, all addicts can really relate to states of consciousness because, you know, take a shot of tequila, take a spike of heroin, take a line of coke, smoke a piece of crack, immediate altered state experiences. And one definition of addiction can be is attachment to certain states of consciousness. Okay, so and often in the early romance part of the addiction, it's just wonderful because you still have a pretty healthy brain at that point, and it's really using your own natural brain chemistry. It spikes it up, eventually it exhausts that, and you start using the drug as a substitute for it, and just it's never quite as good. So they call it they call it chasing the high, because you're always trying to get back to the original.
Right.
High, how great it felt in the beginning. It's never quite as good.
And the reason the high felt so good in the first place was because it was your natural chemicals.
Yeah, you were working with a much healthier brain, and your receptors were.
Much higher.
Yeah. So.
Your own self.
And then you start tweaking. You know, you start doing speedballs, downers plus uppers plus alcohol plus this, but then you start mixing and trying to come up with the perfect high. You know, and sometimes it feels really good, but in the beginning of the progression, the highs are. The goods are higher than the lows, and then it's just as it goes on, and the lows become much more often than the highs, and eventually it becomes just a living hell. The whole thing. There's a temporary numbing out, but the highs are no longer there, and you're just trying to stave off detox and getting sick. So it's just down to the bottom. So the states of consciousness. So yeah, so addicts or people that have used mind-altering substances really can understand that. And the thing about states of consciousness, stages, as we were talking about, the levels and spiral dynamics, is that they're pretty much permanent attainments. Once you've got it, you've got it. In other words, once you learn speech, it doesn't go away. You don't wake up, unless you've had severe brain damage or something, you don't wake up, oh God, I forgot how to talk. You know, no, you've got it. It's established. And the same thing with higher stages of development. You may not always be operating from that level, but once you've built that structure or that floor in your personal house, you can always walk up the stairs and regain that because it's there. Okay, but states come and go. And one of the things we do in meditation is we learn that we can work with these states, and we can learn to work really a science of happiness, optimal states that help us get along really well in the world. But we also learn that the ultimate, just pure awareness is not a state at all. It is the space that states arise in. So at a certain point, as your practice deepens, and say you're really you're really depressed, you're feeling bad or anxious or something, you can kind of just slip out of it into the larger context. Like, oh, the witness kicks in, the emptiness, and there you are. You see your state just arising in this bigger context, and you don't get stuck in it, and it passes much more quickly. And in meditation, the data seems to say that the more that you can tap into emptiness or these altered states of peace and bliss and deeper understanding, they begin to accumulate, and those altered states that we get through our practice actually metabolize into the raw material and the energy for higher stage growth, which is really kind of the kind of holy grail of integral recovery, if you will. And now you can stay at whatever level you want to stay at, except being red. I just don't think you're going to be able to stay sober and do this work if you stay at a egocentric, screw you, only I matter level. You have to at least to get to a healthy ethnocentric where you care about other people and realize that you're not just hurting yourself by not taking responsibility for your disease and acting out and doing all these awful things. So we work with states of consciousness. Another nice metaphor, which was always available to us in wilderness therapy, is that your ultimate awareness, just pure awareness that we have access to in our meditation practice, is like the sky. You go out in the sky and the sky's there and you see clouds go by, rainstorms, lightning, birds, bugs, airplanes, baseballs, you know, frisbees, kites, and those are the objects that arise in consciousness. But you are ultimately the sky. You become the context, okay? You are the board that the story is written on, and you can erase a story and you can write a bad story, but in your deepest self you are that basic awareness. And once you kind of realize that on a deep ongoing level, it gives you just a level of freedom that in every moment, no matter what the drama is, or the anger or the upset or whatever, part of you is absolutely free in every moment, and you can just kind of be with it. And somebody said, maybe I said it, somebody said it, but it's like the difference between playing Hamlet on the stage, like you're playing a role, you know, your little ego self, your Hamlet, you're playing that, and you realize you're playing Hamlet. Okay, I'm playing this role, and you can stop being Hamlet whenever you want, kind of step out of it. But or you become so identified, you think you are Hamlet, you know, Danish prince living in whatever century that was, and how you get lost in it. And that's kind of what happens with our ego identities. I mean, we are that, we are playing that, and we want to play it compassionately, skillfully, joyfully, gloriously, but we don't want to get lost in that as our just ultimate identity, because on a deeper level we are connected to something much deeper and grand and glorious. And as Brother David Sindel-Rath says, God is more and evermore. It just gets deeper and falls deeper and deeper. And don't take my word for it. When I'm working with my students, I don't say, oh, this is the version of spirituality you have to become an integral Christian or a Buddhist or this or that. I don't care what. My challenge is just to do the work, go deeply inside and see what you find. Get beyond your fears, get beyond your darkness, get beyond your neuroses and your woundings, and see what's there. And then you can express that however you want, or connect it to whatever language or whatever tradition. It can be God, it can be emptiness, it can be Allah, it can be the Tao. It doesn't matter, but you go in there and you will find it. And that's a great thing about integral recovery, that we're actually allowing people to develop deeply spiritual levels very quickly. So these levels of attainment and realization are not just for the elite few who have the ability to go live their life in a monastery or work with, you know, a great guru or something like that. You can achieve that now through these processes quite quickly on your own. And we know that it's like Ken talks about it being like a spiritual injunction, that if you say you have a telescope and, you know, everybody looks at the telescope and sees the rings of Saturn, you know, 9 or 10 people, yeah, Saturn has a ring around it. You seen that? You know, I don't believe that. Well, look at the telescope. I ain't looking. It's like, I ain't going inside. No way, no how, you know. But if you actually do the injunction and look, you'll begin to see what everybody's seeing. This mysterious, deepest part of yourself as being your best and highest self.